Welcome to the Love Your Life and Yourself podcast, the weekly show where science meets soul and mom chaos meets mind mastery. You're not just a mom. You're a woman with dreams, a career, a body that needs care, and a soul that craves more. This podcast is your permission slip to stop surviving and start thriving in motherhood, health, career, and stress resilience. I'm your host, Dr. Ashley Rath, and every week we bring you actionable insights and transformative conversations to help you create a life you truly love. From evidence-based wellness strategies to authentic self-discovery, we'll explore what it takes to thrive through expert interviews and real unfiltered stories. Let's dive into today's episode. Today's guest is someone I've admired for a long time. Not just for what she teaches, but how she lives it. Dr. Barbara Eaton is a powerhouse in the world of chiropractic and personal development. She's a speaker, new author, coach, and someone who deeply understands the nervous system and how it impacts everything from our stress to our sense of purpose. Today's episode is one that so many women, especially high-performing moms, leaders, and entrepreneurs will relate to. I sat down with Dr. Barbara Eaton, a powerhouse in chiropractic, neuroscience, and mindset work. We started talking about what it actually means when you feel like you're stuck in a fog or constantly saying, I just need to figure this out. That cycle, so many of us, including myself, get trapped in. Barbara explains it's not just mental, it's neurological. So, what she shares will completely reframe how you think about decision fatigue, burnout, and brain fog. Here's Dr. Barbara on what's really going inside your brain and what to do about it.
We're discussing like brain fog or just being in the figuring it out swamp. And the figuring it out swamp, like how we know we're there is listen to yourself of, I just have to figure this out. I just have to figure that out. I just have to figure that out. And really what that is that's innate asking you to make a decision. So for you or anyone listening, if you're hearing yourself say, I have to figure it out, your nerve system is asking you to make a decision and move forward. And the reality is if we're that stuck and things are that close that it's difficult to be like this one or this one, they're so close, just pick one so you have some progress. Right? Then our reticular activating system and prefrontal cortex get online to make that new decision, that new belief true. Right? That's what the reticular activating system does. It makes our beliefs true. So then we were talking about brain fog, or I feel like I'm in a slump. So that's an amygdala hijack. An amygdala hijack happens in our brain when we're stressed, worried, bored, concerned, or feeling trapped. Stressed, worried, bored, concerned, or feeling trapped. When one or more of those conditions is present, that then leads us into a neurochemical cascade for at least 18 minutes, in which case cortisol levels go up, your body feels like it's in panic, adrenaline and noradrenaline. 80% of the time then, when you're in amygdala hijack, you knock your prefrontal cortex offline. And if your prefrontal cortex is offline, it's like pretend that your prefrontal cortex is your computer, like your main computer frame. Well, and that main computer frame, that's where we do logic, problem solving, reasoning, empathy, and listening. So it makes sense then when we're stressed, worried, bored, concerned, or feeling trapped, we're in sympathetic overload, right? So the only four things I can do then are fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. So fight, I'm angry. I get angry easily, right? Or the littlest things that my kid does, I'm ready to like, "Ah!" Like we become these women that like sometimes you step back and you're like, gosh, I don't even know who I am there. I remember when my now husband and I first started dating, my kids were junior high at that point. And they were doing something and I was a yeller. Not proud of that. And if you're a yeller, get ahead of that. You'll regret it deeply as your kids get older. But I was screamed at them. Like we were in the car and I was just like screaming at them. I know none of the listeners have ever done that before, but I'll admit like, I was a
Guilty.
screamer. Yeah.
Guilty.
Guilty, right?
Yeah.
And he looked at me and he's like, we're not gonna do that again. I was like, "Okay, got it." Like, he's like, "I don't know what that was, but that was insane. I like, that's crazy." Well, now I know why, right? I was just so on edge all the time that that trigger for anger was right there, and I had myelinated that pathway, right? So for those listening, so how we develop a habit is repetition, right? And then the more that we do it, that we myelinate it. And myelin is this like insulation that goes on our nerves that speeds up conduction velocity. So the more we do something, the faster we can do it and the faster our recall. So go back then to fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. That's fight. Flight. I'm out of here. Right? Like, if you find yourself giving up on things quickly and you're like, "Man, I didn't used to do that. I was always the person who pushed through. I was always the one who, finished cleaning up the house, or I was always the one who carried trash out of her car, or I was always the one who followed through on, if I said I was going to lose weight or whatever." It could be that you're regularly in an amygdala hijack and now you've myelinated that flight. Freeze. I just get paralyzed, like, I don't know, I just, like, I can't think anymore. I just like this happened with a new client the other day. She was like, "I don't know what's going on lately, but I just like suddenly can't remember something. I had something on my schedule the other day that's on my schedule once a month for the last like 9 months, and I saw it today and I couldn't even remember who the person was." Like, it makes sense. Like, just neurologically, your body is freezing when you have another demand. And then the fawning is saying yes outwardly, and inside you're screaming no.
Mm,
We've all been there, right? Like,
mhm.
every yes is a no to something else, or every no, like, is a no to bigger dreams. Well, actually, neurologically, that happens as well when we're fawn. And as I was sharing with Dr. Ashley before we got started, I stopped believing in myself. There was a period of time in about 2022, 2023, where I would say, like, "Yeah, I'm gonna get that done," and I knew full well either I wasn't gonna do it or there was no chance I could get it completed. But I was on such a performance production junkie that I overcommitted and overcommitted, and, I lost a lot of trust and faith from my team and even my clients because I wasn't being my word. Well, before long, I didn't even believe myself, and that's the fawn, right? So the fight, flight, freeze are fawn. And these are just things that we can be mindful of ourselves. And this isn't like, please don't hear me that this is like letting you off the hook. This isn't a diagnosis. So now I know why I'm not committing. So I can just, continue that way. No, 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 no. This is now, when we know we must do better.
Mhm.
Right?
Yes.
So as I figured it out, I'm like, "Okay, now I see it." And in my book, Two Streets Named Hard, every chapter we talk about myelinating the gap. And my life has changed 180 in the last 2 years. I've dropped 80 pounds. I've healed my marriage where it was on the brink of, like, literally in 2023, my husband texted me and said he wanted to be separated. I was on the
Oh,
East Coast
goodness.
and he was back here in Alaska. If you haven't had adult children yet, like, buckle up. It's an interesting ride.
I keep
And
hearing that.
yeah, and so interestingly, over the last since 2021 until last year, both of my adult kids have had periods where they, like, pushed me out of their life and we had no communication for periods of time. And if you ever wanna have pain, that's the way to have it.
Oh, I've had a
You know
couple
you
patients with that, and that just sounds like worst case scenario when like,
Yeah.
oh, yeah.
Yeah, and the hardest part of that for me was knowing that, wow, my kids feel so not psychologically safe in my presence or just about me that it feels safer to not have me there. So,
Mm.
like, I never had any animosity towards them, just a broken heart that things had gotten to that point,
Yeah.
and that felt this like the safest, and the only thing I can equate it to is, like, we've all heard of kids who go to the street because home is so scary, that the street seems safer, and so, even though it wasn't obviously that extreme for my kids, that and there wasn't an incident. It was
Hmm.
little bit like by little bit, and, it's one of the reasons I'm writing so many books. It's one of the reasons I'm incredibly outspoken now about, I had always chased success acting like freedom was at the finish line. Freedom of my time and freedom of my attention and freedom, just freedom in general. And the that highway, the exit ramps were all more damage to my children of I gotta work, I'm sorry. Not really paying attention, and I didn't even raise my kids in the social media age. I'm gonna be 60 sooner than I'm closer to 50. I'm 56, I'll be 57 this year. And so, it's the little things that tell another person's neurology you're not important. And
Mhm.
remember, of our communication, only 7% are the words that we use. 38% is our tone, and 55% is our body language. And so when we tell our kids, you're important, but we're not even making eye contact. Remember, eye contact is important because it stimulates the mirror neuron system. And when that happens, then oxytocin levels rise, and now we're bonding.
Mm.
So if I'm listening to this, especially like if you're raising little babies and you're nursing or you're feeding them and you're on your phone and distracted and they're looking at you, you are missing opportunity.
Mm.
Major opportunity not only to bond with your child, but neurologically, what's happening in their brain. See,
That's
we start
a that's a
go ahead.
tough one to swallow sometimes, especially in this day and age when, that's kind of the escape mechanism. Like, oh, just go. Like, I just need a minute. And that minute is almost always you on your phone or, an electronic of some sort. And, I'm guilty. I'm not 100% by any means. I'm guilty of that too. But that's like you take a big swallow and you're like, wow, it's so much deeper than just being on your phone.
Yeah. And you know what it makes me sad that we all have these conversations, and yet I'm quite confident most people do nothing about it.
Why do you think that is?
Well, I know why it is. One, it's what we've myelinated. It's the habits that we've myelinated. And as a believer, I think we have to call them out as addictions. That's been a big
Mhm.
part of the transformation I've gone through in the last couple of years was coming face to face with the Holy Spirit about my own addictions. My addiction to food, it was the most important thing to me. Like I thought about food all the time. And if you really study, scripture and what an idol is the thing or the person or whatever it is that takes your thoughts, right? Like have no other god before me. And that's not just like a bronze image, have no other idols before me, have no other gods before me. Like, even I've recently been convicted about the idol of a healthy marriage. Not that a healthy marriage is bad, but when that was my sole purpose, when that was the
Mm.
thing that I went after even more than my relationship with Jesus, that became an idol. And the
Yeah.
Holy Spirit said, I want to be first. Like your life will never be as fulfilling as it could be without me first, without me being your first love. And so I've been super intentional, and that's why I talk about in Two Streets Named Hard, super intentional to change these things in my life. Like I have 3 by 5 cards that like when I would have a craving, I would write out, these are the steps you're gonna take, Barb, when you have a craving. Like number one, you're gonna ask yourself, are you hungry? Are you legitimately hungry? And most of the time my answer was no. But let's say I was like, "Yeah, I'm hungry." Okay, great. What is your body asking for? And here's what it was never asking for: packaged food. It was asking to be
Yeah.
fed. My cells were asking to be fed, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then I was super intentional when I ate. Like I want to sense the essence of the food that I'm eating. Well, guess what? Before long, food just stopped being so attractive. Like now I eat because I have to. It's not something that really I enjoy that much, right? So I would ask myself, are you hungry? Then after reading, have you met Mindy Pels? She's the
I
chiropractor.
I haven't personally met her, but I have been following her work for the last probably 8 months, and she is just insanely amazing.
Yes, I love her, and and I highly recommend everyone reads the book Menopause Reset, or you can listen to it on Audible. But honestly, I learned more about my body as a woman from that book than anything I've ever read or
Oh,
even studied. Like we had OB-GYN, right, in school, and I learned so much about my body. And one of the things that really struck me there was her talk about that we all know that sugar gives off bacteria.
mm-hmm.
Well, that bacteria, it's a living organism. It wants to stay alive. So, in order for it to stay alive, it sends messages to the brain to say more sugar. So, that's why we have craving. Plus, in packaged foods, they deliberately put chemicals in those foods, obviously, to make us addicted.
Right.
So in part of my card of losing weight, my myelinating the gap was, "Are you hungry?" And if the answer was like, "Not really," okay, then I would literally remind myself, "This is just the bacteria sending a message to your brain, eat more sugar. You're stronger than the bacteria." Like, these are things I would say out loud, right? And I would say them out loud because then I'm gonna stimulate more of my brain, right? So, when I'm saying it out loud, my temporal lobe is now in action. I'm reading it on my card intentionally, so my occipital lobe is engaged. Then I've got my RAS engaged because on my card, I also have my weight goal, right? So all of these things to bring all of the resources that I have available to me because I determine in my heart I'm getting healthy.
Yes.
So I had these cards, right? So then and myelinating the gap is going from circumstance to reaction,
Mm.
extending that time. So I want to myelinate, develop the habit to not be reactionary, which means circumstance to reaction. So that has played a huge part in shedding 80 pounds and becoming healthy again and not, inflamed, and my gut is healthy again. And, I don't have brain fog and tons of energy. And I'm doing a race this summer, a 16-mile, 2,500 feet elevation trail
It's
race.
freaking awesome, Barbara.
Um,
I'm like, this is
yeah,
so cool to hear your journey.
yeah. Thank you. And even, I've even been super intentional. And the reason we're having this discussion is because Dr. Ashley asked me, why don't people? And this is why. I don't think that we take it seriously enough. We say it, and that's like a quick little dopamine hit, like, oh, you're doing good, girl. Like you acknowledge it's not the right thing to do. Well, when we know better, we do better.
Mm-hmm.
That's how we lead. That's how we develop habits in our children. And like in my book, I talk about the marshmallow experiment. And the marshmallow experiment was a really simple experiment, but the thing that was different is they followed the kids in this from this research project for 30 years. And so the marshmallow experiment was they had all of these kids and they said, "You can have one marshmallow and have it now, or you can wait 15 minutes and have two." Well, there were some kids, they couldn't wait, they just ate it. There were other kids who waited. Well,
Mm-hmm.
the kids, they waited and they followed them, they learned to delay gratification. They earned more money than the other group on average over the 30 years. They had better relationships and better health.
Hmm. How old were these
They
kids? Do you remember?
little, like, I wanna say 4 to 7,
Okay.
like,
Yeah,
they
super
were
young.
kids. And so, listen, moms, teaching your kids to delay gratification is the nicest thing you can do for them. you're going to set them up for more success later in life.
Mm-hmm.
And so all of this is just being intentional. And so in Two Streets Named Hillard, I walk you through how to do that. But the more distance you have between circumstances and reaction, I promise you, the more peace and joy and fulfillment that you will live your life with. Like, honestly, I can't even remember. I had this conversation with somebody the other day. I can't even remember the last time I was stressed.
How many
I
people
don't
can say that?
I don't remember at all. And so like this, like doing this too, like even with it, within my marriage of, I'm sure none of you have ever done this, like, poke the bear, right? None of
None.
you have ever done
Nope.
that with your
Never.
husband.
Nope.
I was so guilty of that.
I'm
And
kidding. Obviously,
I
yes.
I didn't I didn't understand amygdala hijack either. And so, Ben and I would fight and he would want to get away. So he'd go out to his garage. I'm like, "Oh no, you don't. We're settling this now."
Mm,
Right? So
guilty of that 100%.
poke
Yes.
the bear, which what can he do? Fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. And at this point, his prefrontal cortex is knocked offline. No problem solving. He's a guy, they love to solve problems. No problem solving, no reasoning, no logic, no empathy. So despite me being in tears and so upset, he can't even really process that because he's an amygdala hijack, and no listening.
Yep. Been there.
So all that would come out is him fighting me, saying things that were horrible just to try and get himself a break. Now, ladies, I'm not excusing his behavior. I'm taking personal responsibility for mine. There's a big difference, right? So then I just started learning. I'm like, well, what is the experience of life I want to have? Because we all create our own experience of life. Like, life isn't as we see it, as it is, it's how we see it through our video game, right? It's how we process it. And because our feelings and our emotions are simply the symptoms of our thinking, right? So we have 12,000 to 60,000 thoughts per day. When we spend time with a thought, that gives our thinking, and our thinking drives our emotions and our feelings. So if you want to understand your emotions and your feelings, just know that they're just the symptoms of your thoughts, of your thinking, right?
100%. Yep.
They're not disconnected. That's where they come from. So I was like, you know what? This just isn't working. I'm stressed out all the time. I'm 80 pounds overweight. I'm in these weird places with my children. My husband and I are going to get divorced. All right, I surrender.
Hmm.
And this is surrender. Palms open, right? I used to do this with God. Like, no, I want you to take it. Take it. And he's like, wait a minute, your fists are clenched. So it wasn't until full surrender of I surrender all, like whatever it is, Lord, I surrender. And that for a time was really scary. And then I'm like, well, this is the safest place for me to be, in full surrender to Jesus, right? Like, he's the lover of my soul. He's the redeemer of my soul. He wrote my name in the Lamb's book of life to spend eternity with him. He created me. He puts oxygen in my lungs every day. He makes the sun come up. He makes the rain come. He makes
Mm,
the birds sing. Like, pretty sure I can trust him because he's going to do way better than me. Right? My devotion the other day said, it basically is like a letter from God. Like, if you are the one in control of your life, you should be worried. But if you
that's
leave it
true.
in my hands, like, I got this. I kind of know what's going to happen. Like, there aren't any surprises, God says. So at any rate, I myelinated the gap in my marriage. And again, I had specific cards, like literally crazy woman cards. And when something would come up, I would grab the card, or if I wasn't home, I was intentional and looked on my phone and I read the steps out loud. Like, let's say we were out at a restaurant and I don't know, my husband and I got in a tiff or something. I literally would go into the bathroom, crazy lady, grab my phone and read the steps. That's how intentional I was to break destructive habits, because they were addictions. No different than your phone.
Hmm.
And I want to tell all of you, the excuse of what if there's an emergency? Tell me the last time you legitimately had an emergency.
That never. Maybe once in the last 10 years.
I mean,
Yeah,
even
but
if
you
Tyler had an emergency on the farm, are you really the one that's gonna solve that? No way, get to the hospital or call the fire department.
right. Yes.
Like, but when we live as if we're waiting for an emergency, now we're in amygdala hijack all the time. We've got our nerve system fired up. It's not good. You're gonna have tons of inflammation. You'll have brain fog. You'll have gut issues. You won't be able to lose weight, and you'll probably have terrible relationships and not be very happy.
I have a funny story about calling
Yeah.
the fire department, or I should say 911. So I was in the house and all of a sudden there are fire trucks going through our yard. We live on a farm. So we have a decently sized yard with big sheds, and all of a sudden the fire department is coming and I'm getting calls and texts from people. Are you okay? And I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. And after the fire truck came rolling in, I was like, what in the world is going on? And so here, Tyler had called 911, the fire department, because he was driving through the cattails with a four-wheeler, and the cattail, like the engine heat, the cattail like powders of that, it ignited. And this has been like a slough for years. So there's a whole bunch of dead grass and the whole slough started on fire, including
Oh.
including the four-wheeler. I had no idea until the fire department was literally driving through our yard, and I was like, "What in the world is going on?"
Oh my god.
And like you said, like true emergency, Tyler did not call me first. Like
Yes.
I can't. And I was like, "Why did you tell me?" He's like, "What are you gonna do? You can't do anything. Like everyone's safe. Like now we just have a big grass fire, and the four wheeler is on fire." So I'm like, "I know." So you're so true. Like in true emergencies, like yes, eventually we will find out about them, but like you're gonna call 911. You're gonna call the hospital, etc. Like there's really, and yes, you'll get there, but everyone was safe and it ended up being fine. But it sparked this memory of like, oh yeah, like he was like, that's exactly what would happen. So yeah.
Yes. And so if the reason or the excuse that we've myelinated, because everyone says it, "What about an emergency?" It's not true.
Yeah.
It's just not true. Like, my phone is always off, like and when you text me, it says, like,
Yeah.
has notifications off, and and the volume is always down,
Yeah.
and it drives my family nuts. Well, especially my husband. My kids know, like, it's all good. It drives him nuts, and I'm just like, "That's okay." Like, it can drive you nuts. I can be and that's another thing, it's so important to learn how to be okay in other people's upset. And
Mm,
I think that's something too, now that my nerve system is so downregulated and I'm not in an amygdala hijack, I can hold space for other people when they're losing it, because 'cause
yeah.
I'm not losing it,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
So I can just stay grounded and be okay in other people's upset, like, I don't intentionally make people mad, but if they are, like, that's a personal thing, that's not like, I didn't cause it. We can't cause other people's feelings.
Right.
It's an inside job. Now, are there things that we can do, like poke the
Yep.
bear? Yes, and we have a
Yes.
personal responsibility in that. But this idea of, "Oh, I don't wanna make somebody mad," like, that's not yours to hold. They're gonna get mad because of something in their video game. They're gonna get mad at because of some a story or something that's happened in their head that you probably originally weren't a part of.
I have
So
a
I
I'm gonna
explained
pause you. I'm gonna go back to what you said about like surrendering. What
uh
did that like you literally said like you put your hands out and you're like I surrender. One, I think people aren't aware because of like you said the myelination, like they're just unaware of these patterns. And it took you kind of until I don't know your full history of your life, but like kind
yeah,
of rock bottom to
yeah,
realize like hey, I need to surrender. But in an ideal world, we don't hit rock bottom, right? Like we can make these changes prior to that.
yeah.
And we're going to be heads away or further ahead if we do that. But what did that actually look like? Like was it a true like me, I'm like, a recovering doer. I think I was telling you earlier in our call, like do 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 do.
Yeah.
And my coaches are always like, Ashley, you don't actually have to do anything. And it's the surrendering. And I was like, yeah, but what is that? Like, what is the
Yeah.
surrender? And so it for me, it's literally nothing. Like stop the thought, whatever that thought may be. But for you, what did that look like in the surrender?
Yeah. And and, kinda like what I had said about my kids, like, it wasn't like one thing,
Mm,
right? It rarely is. Just like when a couple decides to divorce,
right.
it's rarely one thing. You
Mhm.
know? It's
Right.
just it's years of building that bitterness and that resentment and whatever. And so the surrender for me was literally like, what have I got to lose?
Mm,
And doing it a different way. And I just knew I wanted to experience life in a different way. The hamster wheel and the grind and the hustle, they're a way, but they're not the only way. And, when I crashed my snow machine and I literally was forced to slow down, 2 surgeries and 18 months of rehab and
oofta.
blah, 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 it forces you to slow down. And it was in those moments where I was just like, "Okay, Lord, what now?" And that wasn't the day, and even the transformation didn't happen one time, but it was it was the insight that then I decided to be intentional.
Mm,
When I decided to be intentional, like, literally writing down the steps of, I in all of the different situations that would happen in my life that weren't acceptable to me anymore, I wrote my recipe out of, "This is how I want to experience this instead." And one of the things that happens when we have a really busy mind is we don't have access to imagination. So remember that mind is like this big thing up here. And that's where fresh ideas and our imagination and new thought lives. That's where innate intelligence lives. And if you think about it, we all had it as kids and we all still have it. Like, think about how kids imagine. Like, I'm Superman, and they really believe it, right?
mhm.
Or they really believe in Santa, or they
Yeah.
really like they're all in. Well, as we get older, we forget we have that access to that imagination. That's where big things come from. Like, how many of you have heard about, like, the setup routine? I was just Warren Buffett. If you haven't read The Psychology of Money or
Mm,
listened to it
mhm.
yet, oh my gosh, what a great one. And, in there, Morgan Housel talks about Warren Buffett. The majority of what he did was just imagine and think. He wasn't trading stocks, he wasn't, like, doing the stuff, the do. He was imagining, he was designing, he was contemplating, he was basically creating. But if our mind is locked in to do, or scan our phones, or I always have to be doing something, you won't give your brain the space to imagine. And when we imagine, that's where we see the bigger things for our life, right? Like, that's where, Cameron Harold talks about in vivid vision. What is that big of vision, that vivid vision? So that's another part of my turning point. Is I also, Garrett and I on a coaching call, he suggested that I check out vivid vision. And so I was just really intentional, and I listened to it and I read it, and I developed my own workbook. And then I've been leading a group of women in vivid vision, and I just kind of, like, naively assumed they would all be able to tap into imagination. It had been unmyelinated.
Yeah. I have patients, like, tapping into imagination, like, they come in, they're depleted. A lot of them are, like, perimenopause, menopause. They have low libido, fatigue, like, they just have felt crummy for so long. And I asked this question, I said, "If I could wave a magic wand and we got rid of, these symptoms, and let's imagine what life would be like if you weren't having, constant fatigue. You were energetic, you were excited about life, you slept well, you pooped well, like you had a healthy, strong body too. And you have the self-confidence behind it. And they literally, and this is like no shame to them or guilt, but they can't answer that question. Most women can't, they say, I don't know. It's been so long since I have felt good. They literally can't think that, like, that imagination, that myelination is gone. It's so like to walk a person through imagining what life can be like again with health and vitality and energy and happiness and joy, and you can see their light get a little bit brighter because there's hope. It's a powerful thing. And it sounds so crazy, like, oh yeah, just imagine it. But it's like when we have lost just that ability to even see what life would be like when it's not shit, like, so powerful. So,
Yeah. And so imagination then and vision pull us forth,
mm, mm-hmm.
right? They just keep calling us forth. They're like, our true north. And here's the other thing that writing out my vivid vision has really helped me with is I don't get off the highway as often, right? Like if you think about, let's say you were driving from here to the airport, wherever that is in your world. If you're trying to get there for a flight, are you going to take every highway, every exit?
No.
You're only going to take the exits that is the exit to take you to the highway.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Because it would be a waste of time. You would get distracted. Well, that's what happens when we're not crystal clear on our vivid vision.
Mm-hmm.
Is any exit will do. And then we get off over here instead of staying focused on what is it that I want my experience of life to be. And when I talk about experience of life, I mean, what's the feeling that you want to have? Like for me, I'm committed to peace, love, joy, and freedom. And if a thought will sabotage those, I'm out.
So
Right.
for the hustlers, you kind of mentioned this early in our conversation about the hustling and the going to get to freedom.
Mm.
Now, what does that look like? Like, what, and everyone's definition of freedom is different, so there's that variability, but I talk so much about freedom in my world too, and like 100% guilty of, oh, I just have to do this for more freedom. I just have to do this to be free. What does that look like now for you?
Yeah. Well, we're gonna do, like, a quick little exercise to experience this, and all of you can do it, like, you'll do it when you're listening, and please feel free to do it with your clients or patients or whoever. So imagine your bank account right now, whatever it is, 10,000, 100,000, maybe it's $500, whatever it is, just imagine that number. So bring that number up in your head, and then I want you to take a decimal point away. So if it was 5,000, now you have 500. If it was 100,000, now you have 10,000.
Mhm.
Can everyone imagine that?
Mhm.
Does it change how you feel?
Mm, yeah, I don't like it as much.
Doesn't feel very good, right?
No.
So now, and all that happened there was I had you imagine,
Mhm.
and you had a thought, and then you had emotion behind it.
Mhm.
Nothing in the world changed in that moment.
Correct.
But we created a totally different experience in our body. Now I want you to go back to the original amount. So let's say it's 50 grand. And now instead of going to 5,000, add a zero. So now you went from 500,000 to 5,000,000.
Mm.
How's that feel?
I got goosebumps.
And nothing changed in the world. You
No.
didn't suddenly have 5,000,000 in your bank account. You just imagined that it was different. And if the listeners could see you, your face totally dropped when we went in the other direction, and then when we went to 5,000,000, you smiled and your eyes got brighter, right? Pretty normal for
Yeah.
us to do that. So we create our experience of life. We tell our RAS what to focus on. Like, I'll give you another example. So what I want all of you to do is, in just a second, I'm going to give you 10 seconds, and I want you to look around the room that you're in. And it would be better, like you'll get this better if you actually participate. Look around the room, and I want you to count all of the square objects. Ready? Go. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, stop. How many pink objects did you count?
0.
Is it possible there were some pink objects?
Yes.
Why didn't we count them then? Because we didn't tell our RAS, look for it. It doesn't mean your neurology wasn't picking that up. It just means you control what you're seeing in the world. We control what we see. So if I have a limiting belief, a belief in my head that the world is out to get me, those are the glasses I'm wearing. And sure enough, I'm going to see it. If instead I believe the world is like they're all my cheerleaders, I'm going to see that and that and that and that. If I believe there are endless opportunities, I'm going to see them. And maybe you're thinking, oh, well, Barb, it must be nice for you. Well, you have a brain too. And it works the same way as mine does. It's just I've put different things in my brain intentionally than likely you have. But here's the great news. We all have the same opportunity.
100%.
We all have the same opportunity because we all have a brain. And when you understand more how it works and you intentionally apply those facts to your life, you can change your life with so much greater ease than you thought. And remember this, synaptic pruning. So synaptic pruning is something that happens in your brain where there's synapses and they get pruned. Just think of like taking shears and, loppers and chopping off little branches and stuff, right? Like now it's all cleaned up. What do we do with like all of that stuff, that brush? We have to burn it or in some way get rid of it. Well, that's what happens in your brain too when you stop doing one thing. When you stop myelinating that, we stop adding more synapses, right? Like dendritic arborization, which is when we take one idea and add a new one to it, and the tree gets bigger. And in some ways, that's really good. Hebb's law, neurons that fire together wire together. So in some ways, we want to put those things together. But like what I was telling you with my weight loss, instead of putting together dopamine hits with food, I now myelinated instead. Like I like this feeling of not having inflammation, of not having my gut be a wreck. I like this feeling of my body's changing. I like the reflection in this in the mirror. I like putting on clothes that I feel good in. And you can call that superficial or you can call it just being healthy. Yeah, I wanna look good. I want my husband to take a double look. I want when we're being intimate to feel good about myself, and I get to control that.
Yes.
And this idea that our men just have to love us regardless of the fact that we don't take care of ourselves or we take care of ourselves is so weak.
Mm. Hmm.
It's so weak. Like, we gotta do better.
Mm.
That's not acceptable. Like, if we're gonna say, like, we're strong female leaders, then we take responsibility for all aspects of our own life, not everyone else's life, our own life. So how do you wanna feel in your skin? How do you wanna feel when you're looking at that reflection in the mirror?
Yeah.
You get to say what that is. Just like when we did the example of the money in the bank. That's how we change our experience of life and this idea of freedom. I want to burst your bubble, all of you. You're free. You're already free. There's nothing you have to do to get more free because the freedom that we're all saying that we want is just between our ears. For instance, I live in Alaska, and I'm also, a proud gun owner, like an artillery of guns. Right here in my office, I have a loaded pistol right there. I don't know why when I'm gonna need it, but what I'm gonna do is not be caught without it. So if somebody broke into my house right now and put a gun to my head and said, "You have to go out the door and get in that car," I'm telling you right now, I'm saying, "No, I'm not going.
Mhm.
I'm gonna shoot your head if you don't." Well, I guess you're gonna have to do that. We have the freedom. I'm not saying there aren't consequences. Just like if you tell yourself, "Oh, I have to work." No, you don't. Are there consequences? Sure, but that doesn't mean you have to work. I have to do this thing. No, you don't. We're already free. It's not something that comes at success's finish line. It's not when we get to the next level. It's not when suddenly everything's better in our marriage. It's not out there because when you get there, who creates that experience?
Mhm.
We create it,
Yeah.
right? Like, oh,
100%.
I'll be able to stop worrying when we have $1 million in our bank. Well, let's pretend you have $1 million right now. Who's going to create that feeling of not worrying? You are
Mhm.
inside. So we don't have to postpone our lives, all of this yummy stuff that we say that we want until a future day because we create our experience of life from the inside. That's
So
how
good.
we live without this incessant thing about our phone. I'm telling you, your brain does not want you on your phone all the time. I can promise you, and it is addiction. It's no different than gambling. We get the same neurological response from pulling a wheel at, like a bar at the casino as every time we go on our phone and we look for something.
Hmm.
Nothing in
I
the world is gonna change if you don't go on social media. And be more concerned about you. Be more involved in your own life. Be consumed with your own life and what you're doing versus what somebody else is doing.
Mhm.
The comparison game is the thief of joy.
Mm.
When you look at somebody else in the psychology of money, right?
Mhm.
I actually remember when he talks about when the nice car, and we think, "Oh, if I drive a nice car, people are gonna think I'm something special." That's not how it works. When somebody sees you driving your nice car, they're not thinking about you, they're thinking about what it's gonna be like for them if they had that car.
Yep.
But it says nothing about them,
Mhm.
about the person who owns the big house, and by no means am I saying having nice things is bad. I'm just saying that we create the story in our own head about what that means. And that's like the work that you've done with Demi and I too. What's the big promise? What's the big promise? Like your clients who can't imagine what would be like. What's the big promise if you did have lots of energy? Even take them back. Tell me what would you say was your healthiest time of your life? When you felt the most energized, the most you? Tell me about that.
Yeah.
Right? So remember that in order for something to land in the hippocampus, it has to have an emotional carrier.
Mhm.
So if there wasn't emotion attached to when they felt that way, it could be difficult to remember it.
Mhm.
But if you bring things up and bring up the story, they'll probably be able to put it together.
100%. Yeah, and they can with a little prompting. They absolutely have that ability. It's not like they've lost it. They've just misplaced it for a little bit.
Yes. Yes. And it's reminding ourselves. So like back to that visionaries thing, like we spent the first 2 months just training our brains again to imagine what could that be like, right? Which was a beautiful thing because in that we were able to break a lot of the limiting belief chains. And what I mean is we were able to see, okay, like imagine your business is generating 5 million a year instead of a half a million. Well, what it brought up was, am I really allowed to do that? Will that mean I'm greedy? Will it this, da, 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 da? And so we were systematically able to break those synapses, right? Like we did our own cards and we myelinated our own gap and we were super intentional about it. And remember this, ladies, and this is especially any practitioner, be really curious when you hear somebody talking about brain fog and find out if they're sitting up when they're sleeping. Because in order to have that synaptic pruning and for this the CSF to clean it, you have to be recumbent.
Huh. I did
You
not know
have to
that.
lay down in order for the CSF to be able to come up, clean the brain, and pull that stuff out. So
Fascinating.
without it too, like, now they're starting to think and research is moving in the direction of that is part of the process of Alzheimer's and dementia, is that synaptic pruning and that cleansing didn't happen, and so then we develop plaques because those little pieces attach to other parts of the brain.
Huh. Interesting.
So either like somebody isn't sleeping a whole lot, which obviously that creates its own thing, but one of the things that it does is creates this like mess in your brain, neurologically creates this mess, right? Physiologically creates this mess, or somebody's who's had a history of sitting up in a chair or whatever to sleep because lying down is uncomfortable.
Mm.
So, typical like low back pain,
Yep.
mm,
Snoring.
snoring, right?
Yeah.
Mamas who are nursing all night,
Mm-hmm.
you gotta lay down or your CSF can't clean it.
Huh. Fascinating. Love it. Thank you, Barbara.
Yeah,
Um,
thanks. Fun.
I have a closing question for you that I give everyone. So, what's one piece of advice or information you give our audience trying to love their lives and themselves more fully?
Mm. Well, one I would tell you is stop trying.
Mm.
Neurologically, even the moment we say try, we give ourselves an out.
Mm.
What does it look like to actually just love your life? And here's the interesting thing. Scripture, like I just had this conversation with somebody the other day in a small group. She said, "Well, we just have to learn to love our lives, love ourselves." I'm like, "Do you know scripture never tells us that? We were already born with that.
Mm.
Born with it. I mean, think about an infant. Wah, I'm cold. Wah, I'm tired. Wah, I'm hungry. Wah, my diaper needs to be changed. Like it's written on our DNA to love ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
So it's probably not that as much as it is when you know better, do better. Do the things that you know are going to make a difference in your life, and you'll start loving yourself again.
And get around that instant gratification you hit on because it
Yes.
is like, your book, which you just launched, Two Streets Named Hard. It's really
Mhm.
this like raw, powerful story about resilience and grit and choosing the road that really kind of leads to purpose, even when it's not always the easiest road to take. And I think that's so powerful. So powerful.
Yeah, be your word. We stop loving ourselves when we lie,
Hmm.
and I'm totally guilty. Like, I wasn't my word to other people, I wasn't my word to myself, and that really started eroding my belief in myself. So then guess what? Like, as a businesswoman, I stopped making offers because like, business success, right, is offers and fulfillment.
Mm-hmm.
And it really just boils down to those 2 things. How many offers are you making? Well, I didn't trust myself. I didn't believe in my product anymore, my coaching product anymore, so I wasn't making offers. And if I was, neurologically, there was a gap,
Yeah.
right? Because our nerve systems are always communicating with the other person's, whether it's mirror neurons or just energetically. And so, of course, they're not gonna believe it either. Well, conversions, the
Yeah.
lowest ever. Makes sense. Totally get it.
100%. Mm-hmm.
So, be your word, raise your standard, and do what you know needs to be done. And if you need help, ask for it.
Love it.
Like, this place that I live in now has had a huge price tag. I've had, like, when I did Cash Cabin with Garrett, it was $25,000 for one day. I'm for sure worth it. My coaching with Demi every year is $100,000. We've
Mm-hmm.
been together for over 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, those who play at the highest levels invest at the highest levels. And I highly recommend getting my book. You can get it on Amazon. It's called Two Streets Named Hard. It's it's a really great book. It just is. And it's not a book to get to the last chapter. Like those who are finding the biggest transformations are actually at the end of every chapter where it walks you through how to myelinate the gap for that topic.
Mm-hmm.
Do it. I have a free workbook too. Like I'm doing everything I can to help you make the changes. You got to step up. I care, I don't carry, and I never chase. Like I don't care about anyone's success more than they do. I don't care about their health more than they do, but I will give you every opportunity to get what you say that you want.
I just love you and what you do. This
I
is
love
so
you
good.
too.
This is so
Yeah.
good. Where do people find you? So you can get your book on Amazon,
Yeah.
Two Streets Named Hard. Where else can they follow you? Like socials? I mean, we'll have it in the show notes too. But
Yeah, I'm launching my brand new website, should be done tomorrow, Dr. Barbara Eaton,
yay, that's
called
exciting.
drbarbaraeaton.com, and I developed a quiz, and the quiz is to help you identify what kind of leader you are.
Mm,
There are 4 different pathways, and then I give you a big, a big understanding, like, it's all about understanding yourself better,
mm-hmm.
of how you're leading, whether you're the financially disconnected CEO or the bottlenecked visionary, the overextended operator, or the hidden gem. Those are the 4 pathways, and then it follows up with a nurture sequence, and so I'm just gonna keep teaching you about yourself, because the more that you know yourself, the better decisions that you're going to make, and if you're in the figuring it out swamp, like, that's a really great quiz to take. You'll be able to make some decisions and move forward.
Love it. Thank you so much, Barbara.
Yeah, thank you. Absolutely.
It
Um,
is so great
and it
to chat with you again. And I like was taking notes. I have notes that I am going to implement. So this is
oh,
awesome.
good.
Yeah.
Good. And I'll tell you too, I'm doing a women's retreat
Mm,
November 6th to the 9th in Sedona, and I'm asking everyone who attends to read Two Streets Named Hard
yeah.
and Mother Hunger. And it's not a retreat like most, like, there isn't a big agenda. We're gonna hike both days. One day will be a simpler hike, the other one's gonna get our sweat on, and we're all staying, it's slumber party style, we're all staying at an Air VRBO in Sedona, and there isn't set times for conversations, but by having you read these 2 books,
Yeah.
there's gonna be stuff that comes up.
Yep.
It's not just for chiropractors. I actually have former patients who are coming.
Oh, cool.
So I'm super excited about that. And then also, Ash, if you want me to make the connection to Timothy for the totality group.
Oh, yeah.
And then in July, I'm also starting a women's virtual mastermind, high achievers getting together. So that may be something that's really attractive to you. It's really reasonable. It's $500 a month. And we're going to do a similar model. So to the totality group, there'll
Yeah.
be prayer request. There'll be a hot seat. There's gonna be a lot of accountability and just high level discussions about life and business and carrying out our vision.
Love it. Yay.
Yeah, cool. Hey,
Cool.
so good to talk to you. Thank you for allowing me to come on and take 90 minutes of your time today.
Thank you. Thank you for giving me 90 of yours. I
Yeah.
really, really, really appreciate it. And this
Yeah.
has been a blast. So
Yeah, it has been. Thank you. Have a wonderful day. God
y-
bless you.
thank you. You too.
All right. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye bye.
Thanks for tuning in to Love Your Life and Yourself. I hope today's episode gave you one more tool or one more truth to help you thrive in your health, happiness, and resilience. Remember, loving yourself isn't selfish, it's leadership. And it's the foundation for building a life that actually feels like yours. If this spoke to you, hit that follow button, leave a review, and send it to a friend who needs to hear it. And if you want to dive even deeper, grab a copy of my #1 best-selling book, Love Your Life and Yourself. It's the heart behind this podcast, and it's helped thousands of women step into a life they actually love. You can find it at drashleyrath.com or through the link in the show notes. Until next time, take care of you and keep choosing to love your life and yourself.